Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between, my name is Mike Boss, and I'm the writer and director of this upcoming film, Die and Live Again, or Dala in short. And here's this promised video that will give you a lot more details and insights into this movie project and a little bit more information about myself. Alright, let's go! Alright, first of all, I want to thank everybody that has donated to this campaign, all the generous people who have given. We really appreciate every dollar, and it's very important because it's very difficult to finance an independent film, and it takes a lot of people to pull off a movie, and you guys are now a part of it, and that's really awesome. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. As you know from the pitch video, I grew up in Switzerland, but what most people don't know, I actually was born in Toronto, Canada, and my Swiss parents went back to Switzerland when I was like 1 year old, so I don't even remember Canada, but I do have the Canadian citizenship, and I have the Swiss citizenship, and I have the American citizenship. And since I'm married to my beautiful wife, her parents are actually originally from Nigeria, so maybe I soon get the Nigerian citizenship. So as you can see, I'm kind of the James Bond of filmmaking, okay? Yeah, so I grew up in Switzerland. I went to regular school 9 years and then started an apprenticeship and got my diploma in civil engineering design, which is a fancy word for draftsman. So 4 years I got this diploma, and then I went to mandatory military service in Switzerland, 17 weeks, and then I analyzed my life and realized, you know what? I'm not really happy, and the people around me are not really happy either, if you're honest, you know. And I started to analyze life and try to figure out what I really wanted, and I realized that Europe is a very pessimistic poled society. And what I mean by that is that most people, it's a generalization, but it's true, every time they have an impulse about something, it almost always comes from the negative side first. You can show the people the most amazing thing, they will always find something negative to point out. So if you talk about dreams, it's always like, oh, this is not going to work out, you're never going to succeed, you're going to fail. I know that a lot of Americans, they kind of think Europe is so great, but yeah, no, it's not. You know, it's like Europe really has a can't-do attitude. And when I came over here and realized the Americans, it's just exactly the opposite. They have a can-do attitude, much more optimistic. And yeah, sometimes Americans can be overly optimistic, but you know what? That's fine with me. I really take that any-time over the constant pessimism that I get from Europe. And I've met a lot of Europeans over here, from Austria and Sweden and Finland and the Netherlands and Germany and Italy and Spain and France, and they all say the same thing. Once they live here and look back, and I point out the pessimistic attitude, said, oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So once I realized that, I was thinking, what do I want to do with my life? And I decided I want to come to the United States and pursue happiness. I want to become an actor in Hollywood. So I left and came over here. Alright, so here I was in Hollywood, didn't know anything, didn't even speak English, so I had to learn the language first and then go through the immigration process. Whew, that would be a great story too, but I can't make this video 5 hours long. But so I went through immigration, I learned about the city and the country and the film business, and then finally joined an acting class, and that was amazing too. I was fascinated by the craft, and I still am fascinated by acting. It took me many years to even understand how this works, you know, how you can program your subconscious to accept imaginary circumstances and then act them out in the moment and have them come up, and your subconscious accepts them as real, and that's why it creates real emotions, and it's really fascinating. For a lot of people, acting looks easy, but boy, oh boy, it's probably one of the most difficult art forms there is. So I was fascinated by it, studied it for like 5 years, but then realized that since I didn't know anybody here in Hollywood, and connections is everything. I mean, talent is should be a given, but then it's all about connections, and I didn't know anybody. So I realized if I ever want to be in something, I maybe should start writing my own stuff, kind of like what Stallone did back then with Rocky, So I started writing and soon fell in love with it. I realized like, wow, writing, like creating its foundation for a movie, it's even more appealing than acting to me. And I realized I'm much more the introvert than extrovert. And if you're an actor, you always need other people. You need other actors, you need a project and the director and money and the equipment and crew. But as a writer, I can be at home by myself and just write away. And that's what I did. I've wrote several short films and the entire web series, like 21 episodes. And started writing feature films, and I was optioned 11 times, and I signed 4 shopping agreements, I won a screenplay contest, and so on. But then again, I realized that since I don't have the connections, I can't just bring scripts to a studio, you can't do it, So I thought, shall I just keep writing until I have 30 screenplays, or maybe I should look into, producing and directing. And just as I was thinking that, I got an email from a friend who said, Mike, I want to do a movie with you next year in Los Angeles, you should direct it, let's do it. And that's kind of how I fell into directing. So we all got together, my wife joined the producer team and also became one of the lead actors in the movie, and she won a little award for Best Actress too. Just pitching my wife a little bit here. And so we produced that movie for $27,000 only. I mean, unheard of. A micro budget movie, and it was hard work. It was honestly kind of like a nightmare to do, but we all did it, and we produced that film successfully, and it's now available in like 80 different countries, and it's available on Amazon Prime for free, and then YouTube and iTunes and Google Play and Vudu and Xbox and all those digital platforms. You can check it out. It's called Anonymous 616. It's a psychological thriller / horror film, and so we successfully produced our first micro-budget movie. And if you go on my YouTube channel, you can actually see I created like 60 short video clips about the making of, talking about everything from script to casting to shooting to post-production, distribution. Check it out if that is something that interests you. So after producing the first feature film, it was now time to think about the second feature film. My second feature film is going to be Die and Live Again. And a lot of people always ask what the inspiration was for that script. And well, first of all, I remember back then when I was writing one screenplay after another and pitching it to people and production companies and stuff. And I always was looking for those postings like producer is looking for a screenplay, and then you send it, And at the beginning there was just like producer looking for, family friendly or action or thriller script, and I send it in. And then those postings changed into looking for low budget scripts. And then a few months later, looking for ultra low budget scripts. And then shoestring budget scripts and micro budget scripts, all the way down to looking for no budget scripts. It's like it went down throughout the years. People or producers were looking for scripts that can be produced cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and that requires, of course, a script with minimum locations and minimum cast, because if at the beginning, I just wrote screenplays, a lot of locations, $5 million, $10 million movies. So I took on the challenge because I was thinking, can I write a screenplay that is interesting with like 2 locations and minimum cast? That's a challenge, if you have so many restrictions. So I started writing cheaper and cheaper and cheaper scripts, and one day when I was walking around the neighborhood, as I usually do every day as an exercise, and thinking, I was thinking, okay, if I could only write one more script, that's it, and it has to be micro budget film, what would I write about? So I was thinking about that for weeks, months, maybe even, and of course after thinking about it, it was clear that it had to be a film about the huge subject, and what subject could be bigger than God? Because every human being on this planet is thinking about, at one time or another, about God, or why there is no God, or even the atheists spend a lot of time thinking about arguments why there is no God. I came to the conclusion after a lifetime of thought that there clearly is a God, and it's much more rational to believe in a God, and realizing that there can't be any wisdom without God, and realizing all those things made it crystal clear that God is it's the most important subject on this planet, and has to be promoted, because nowadays the media are promoting every day that, Christians are stupid and religion is stupid, the Bible is stupid, there is no wisdom in the Bible, and it's not rational to believe in God. It's just, so I was thinking about writing a screenplay about that subject, taking on all those arguments that, it's not rational to believe in God, or there is no right and wrong, and ideas like that, And the biggest inspiration behind this film or this script was the radio talk show host Dennis Prager. A lot of people probably know him. He's on the radio every day. I have been listening to him for over 20 years. Yeah, I remember having this job at the bakery a long time ago. I was on the road and suddenly came across this radio station. I was listening to Dennis Prager and I was hooked, because it's just so much wisdom, instead of just listening to music, shake your booty, shake your booty. Shake your booty, shake your booty. You're actually listening to something that gives you wisdom, So I started then and never stopped. So for 20 years I've been listening to Dennis Prager, and then I have read books about the world and politics and God. And anyway, so the inspiration, clearly the biggest inspiration came from Dennis Prager. I took the God subject, created a script that can be produced on a micro budget, and made it an interesting story too, because it shouldn't just be preaching, it should be entertaining and at the same time stimulating for the brain and stimulating for the heart. And that requires a clever setup in the script. You have to create a situation where a dialogue like that seems appropriate, because you can't just have 2 guys meeting at the bar and then for an hour and a half talk about God. You need to come up with some scenario that makes sense, which is clever and entertaining, and that's what I did, and I hopefully succeeded, and the script is ready, and that's why we do this fundraiser now, and I will tell you more about the story, more details about it, but pretty much that was the inspiration, and that's how the script came to its existence. Alright, so before I go into... Oh, who's coming here? Hi, it's my little kitty. Isn't that the cutest kitty? Yeah, you're interfering here a little bit. But yeah, I know you want to make an appearance too. So here it is, Lucy. This is your close-up. Yes. I love you so much. So anyway, what I was going to say that before I get into the story, I want to give you a little idea what has been done so far And in the development phase, you know, for example, I have built a little miniature stage, you know, because the movie starts when a man wakes up in a white room, you know. So actually I have that thing over here. So I built this little miniature stage. Maybe I can show that here. So the man wakes up in this room and then looks around, realizes that he is in this room. Here's a glass wall, and behind it here is an office. Maybe I give you a little look like this too. Something like this. Yeah. So that's what I built, just to give some people, other producers, an idea how this is a set that needs to be built in a soundstage. And got some carpet samples to consider, and then I have done a lot more, of course. And I probably have to, yeah, maybe I should move the camera over to my computer real quick so I can show you just a couple of things, and then I tell you what the story is all about and wrap it up. Okay, so 1 second. All right, so here we are at my computer, and here is the script, of course, is done. It's 97 pages long. It's a little bit too long for my, I like to shorten it a little bit, but it's going to be very difficult because every word is very important. So we'll see. But so that's the script. And then what else do we have? We have an entire business plan, of course, which talks about the movie and why we want to do a movie, and if there is a market for the movie, and a poster, or a preliminary poster at least, and what the movie is all about. Like here, we don't need God, or religion is evil, there is no good or bad, there is no right and wrong, all is relative, Christianity is a lie, evolution is the truth, a belief in God is not rational, and so on and so on. And then about the characters here, and the producers, and the little budget we have here, and so on and so on. Then I created, and that's where my job as a draftsman or civil engineering design came in very handy, because I was actually able to make a plan, like a blueprint of the room, of the set that needs to be built. So that's what I created here. I can show that to people when they have to build the set, or maybe I have to build it myself, who knows. And then this is about the look, kind of like, I like the look of the movie Equal, I think was the movie. And so this is kind of the color theme, you know, this whole gray, bluish look. I like that very much. And then what else do we have? Oh yeah, the car crash. Well, there will be some car crash simulation going on. So I wrote about that and had ideas how to do it. That's the picture below is the look through the car windshield when a truck comes head on toward the guy in the car. And then of course locations, you know, there is a psychology office. I would like that to be at some kind of corner office, because visually that would look awesome, and it would be so different from, you know, those are all different examples of how the office could look like. We have to do, of course, a lot of location scouting. This would be downtown LA that could be converted into a psychology office. So a lot of research goes into the development phase. And then the office within the room, that would kind of be the style. I mean, this is a little bit too fancy and way too expensive, but kind of the look, the vibe, the futuristic look I like very much. So that'd be something I would try to find or recreate, so to speak. And then of course I started doing storyboards, as you can see here. I mean, there's storyboards. I only started, this is just like the first scene or the first two scenes or something. So, and I can click on, let's see, click on this one. Oops, here, so I'll make it a little bigger. So I created all those storyboards to show how the camera is gonna capture the image. And yeah, so that's pretty much for the development phase. Now I'm gonna switch over again. Alright, so now I'm going to tell you exactly what the movie is all about. And this is also a spoiler alert, because I'm going to give you all the details. So if you don't want to know, you got to do one of those. La 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 la. Alright? But for everybody else, so here we go. As I have mentioned earlier, Richard, he is the main character. He is a depressed / suicidal financial advisor who one morning mysteriously wakes up in this white room. He has no clue how he got there. He looks around, tries the doors, he's locked in. He realizes that, or sees that the room is sectioned off with a glass wall, as you have seen in the model before, and behind it is an office, So this woman shows up, Angela, and she tells Richard, well, I'm very sorry, but you're here because you have died on Earth, and you're here now in this between station. I'm very sorry, but you're dead. So of course Richard doesn't believe it. He laughs it off and said, what, are you crazy? You think I'm stupid to believe that I'm dead? I know I'm not dead. And Angela keeps questioning, well, I mean, have you ever been dead before? Do you know how it feels? Because of course I haven't been dead before, but I know how it feels to be alive. Angela calmly says, well, what if being dead feels the same way as being alive? How would you know the difference? And of course he has to admit, yeah, I wouldn't know the difference, but I'm alive. I'm not falling for that. But then later at night, Richard experiences some flashbacks. He clearly sees images of a car crash. He's been in a car crash. He even remembers moving towards a bright light at the end of the tunnel. So he wakes up and he is shocked, and he starts to believe that, oh my God, I indeed was in a car crash. I saw the light. I guess it's true after all. I am dead. So now, of course, he wants to know what he needs to do in order to move on and leave this room. And Angela tells him it's very simple. As soon as you have a clear conscience, you can leave through the tunnel. But in order to have a clear conscience, you need to confess all the sins that you have committed throughout your life. And Richard is not happy about that, and he is not really willing to engage into a conversation like that, but he doesn't want to be stuck in this room either. So after going through the 5 stages of grief, he finally gives in, and he starts to admit all the little sins he committed. And of course at the beginning he tries to justify all the little things like, well, I mean, everybody does this, but Angela is very wise and very calm, and she guides him through this process. So at this point we're introduced to a second storyline of the film, and we see Richard's wife Megan. And Megan sits with a psychologist, and she talks about the difficulty she has in her marriage with Richard. She says it all seems lost. Richard is depressed, he's suicidal ever since her daughter died. They had a 3-year-old daughter, Samantha, and she died tragically in a car accident. And ever since then, Richard is just depressed and suicidal. He doesn't pay attention to the marriage anymore, and it all seems lost and doomed. But the psychologist says, wait a minute, you came to the best. And Megan tells that she has seen many psychologists, and she loses hope. She came to the best. And Dr. Campbell says, yes, you came to the right place, because we do have one last solution for hopeless cases. And she introduces Megan to the Dollar Company, Die and Live Again. This company specializes in those hopeless cases, and what they do is they take those patients like Richard and secretly sedate him, and then they bring him to this Dollar underground company, where they put him in a car crash simulator. And while Richard is half awake and half asleep, they put him through this car crash simulator in order to get those images into his subconscious, and after that they put him in a wheelchair and push him towards a bright light at the end of the tunnel, again to imprint those images into his subconscious. And then later on, when the patient has those flashbacks, they start indeed to believe that they have died, and that changes everything around, of course. And then they go through this process of admitting their sins. So now, of course, it's like, whoa, we have just learned that Richard is actually alive, but he thinks that he's dead. And we keep watching him go through this process, and sometimes very painful process of admitting his sins, you know. And once he reaches the biggest sin that troubled him the most, it's very difficult for him to talk about, but he believes that, well, he knows that the death of his daughter Samantha was entirely his fault because he forgot to properly strap her in the car seat because he was on the phone, he was distracted, you know, and then he got in a car accident and the daughter died. And furthermore, he then manipulated the car seat in order to commit fraud on the insurance company, you know, claiming a defect car seat. So he got a lot of money, and that's the reason why they have a house. And of course, compromising the integrity to such a level, you're not going to live in peace anymore, you know. So he becomes awakened to all those facts, and he becomes a new human being who is aware of God and integrity and life, and he's very troubled but also more and more peaceful the more he gets rid of the baggage. And he keeps claiming that he would do it all different if he would only have a second chance. And you can imagine at the end of the movie, once his conscience is clear and he's a new human being, an enlightened human being, and he is finally able to leave, and he walks through the tunnel, through the light, and comes out on the other side, and then he stands in a soundstage. And he has no clue what's going on for a moment. He sees Dala employees clapping, a lot of them clapping, and he looks around and he sees the car crash simulator, he sees an ambulance, and he sees Angela, and he's like slowly putting it together, and then the crowd slowly parts, and there is his wife, Megan, and he slowly puts it together and realizes, oh my God, I was tricked into this situation, and now I'm standing here, indeed getting a second chance at life. And this will be an epic moment, not just for Richard, but also hopefully for the audience. Once Megan and Richard embrace, you know, realizing, wow, this huge paradigm shift that he just got and we just got will hopefully stay with us forever, and that's what hopefully will make this movie so powerful. So that's the big plan behind the film, and that's why I'm pushing so hard, and appreciate that you guys are helping to pitch in to make this film a reality. So thank you very much. Alright, so that pretty much sums it up. I want to thank you again for donating and listening to this whole video, and feel free to join our Facebook movie page because there will be updates, you know. It is Die and Live Again movie, and you can also join my YouTube channel, you know, learn more about our previous movie, and there's a lot of stuff to look at. And they keep sharing this campaign to all your friends because the more the merrier. And if you happen to know some kind of wealthy person who wants to invest a big chunk of money and get some profit participation, we can talk about that too. Send me an email, and if you have any questions, also send me an email because I read and answer every single email personally. So send it to hdmovies@aol.com or therealmikeboss@gmail.com. So thank you very much for everything, and I'll see you in the movies. All right, bye.